Two friends meet up to drink some beers and talk about past times. Not yesterday, but long ago, it's scandals, wars and crimes. From Stalin's reign to Prohibition, Tudors, Pompey, Bush and NASA's mission, Edison's bulk, Genghis Khan's rise to victory. Forget your old teacher, it's time for Pint-Sized History.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pint-Sized History Podcast with me, Zack.
And me, Joe.
Nice, you remembered it's your turn.
Oh, yeah, I forgot last time, Yeah.
Completely blundered it. If you haven't listened to the last episode, the first few seconds you hear Joe going, oh, is it me? Fuck.
Yeah.
The History Podcast, we talk about the landmark events of the past. I don't think we used that tagline for some time now. But the landmark events of the past so shape the world we live in today. And this one is, as I say every episode, a cracker. Joe, what have you got in store for us today?
The Black Death, which I only decided on researching yesterday or the day before, because I was really in two minds about how I wanted to do this. I thought, let's do an episode that's kind of completely different to what we're talking about. We're going to talk about an event, a pandemic, and I honestly, like, as I was doing the research for this, I just kind of couldn't help noticing that, like, I studied this at school, as I'm sure many British children did. You study some stuff with the Black Death at school. Yeah. And so I was finding out, I was forgetting things.
Very quickly, the Black Death and the bubonic plague, are they the same thing?
You don't know?
No, that's literally why I've asked you if they're the same thing.
Did you study it at school?
Yeah, and I remember we learned about there's two plagues maybe, and one was definitely bubonic, and one had the witch doctor's masks. But was that also did the Black Death have boobs?
Yeah, that's okay. Fair enough. If that's how you're saying it, the Black Death was, if you're don't know what the Black Death was, it was a huge pandemic that happened in Europe in the. Fuck, I don't know. 1300s. Fucking hell. I was like, where is it?
It was 1400s.
No, 1300s. It's a plague. I mean, let's just bring this back for a second because I will answer your question.
What is a plague?
What is a plague, Zach? Can you say what that is?
Yeah, plague is a medieval pandemic, basically. I think that's what they because like plague infers like religiosity. So like plague is a plague sent from God. That's the way I view
that might
plague.
Be. Like, I mean that might be where the word comes from.
Right now you have pandemics and illnesses, but like for me, when you think plague, you think something that happened in like the 1300s, 1400s, and you think plague is a plague as God's smiting us because we behaved badly or something like that, like the 10 plagues.
Well, although that the wordage is right, that is probably where the word plague comes from. That isn't what a plague actually is, though. It's not a medieval illness. Plagues are still a thing today.
Really?
I'll tell you exactly what a plague is. So plague is, in the medical sense, the word plague refers to an infectious disease caused by bacteria called Yersinia pestis. So it's literally a specific disease, a very specific disease. But of course, there's also the umbrella term plague, which we often use for just, bad diseases. We use it for an umbrella term. We also use it for like a plague of locusts, like if there's a plague of pests that are about. Like plague is kind of something.
You in my life, a bit of a plague.
Yeah. Well, the thing about plagues is that usually they spread really quickly and they kill really quickly. So that's one of the usual things that you'll get with a plague. So neither of those have happened to you with me. So I think you can count that out.
Yeah, but
that analogy, actually.
You have really annoyed me, though, in the past. Not right now. Hey, you're chill right now. You're not plaguing me right now.
But no, let's bring it back now. So you're absolutely right.
Hang on. So I think you're missing something, Joe, because... pint-sized history. Have you got a drink on you right now?
I sure do. I haven't actually taken a sip from it yet. I've got it in my Crate Brewery pint glass, which they gave to us, which was nice.
I think people listen to this podcast. It's called Pint-Sized History. We rarely, I don't know how often we actually talk about how much we drink, but typically a lot of the episodes, I find myself just getting like fairly drunk. Like at least the ones now we started filming at home, I'm just sinking a number of pints throughout the recording of the episode. So
you gotta be careful.
You gotta be careful.
Gotta be careful about that.
Be careful what?
No, it's true. It's great. I mean, look, what better conditions to talk about one of the most deadly pandemics in world history? In a bedroom, nice and warm, with a pint in your hand. You're right. We don't really talk about the fact that we drink pints enough because we don't really hold them. Like we put them down, so you never really see them in your hand. But no, we are drinking, and we suggest to you, unless you're driving, that you drink while you listen to us. If you are driving, maybe pull over. Pull over, then drink. No, and then sleep, and then when you're back to normal again, then you drive again.
How
That's what
fucking
it said.
homeless is that? You're listening to a history podcast. I'll pull over a little bit. I've just got a hankering for some Iwo Jima and a bit. I just snooze outside this BP petrol station.
I mean, look, one man's treasure is another man's pain. So that's not the quote.
Yeah.
That's
No,
not
it's
the
not.
quote at all.
It's not. One man's treasure is another man's plague.
Plague. Okay, yeah. Thank you to bring it back because my God, we haven't even talked about what we're talking about. So let me just finish what I was saying. So the plague, like I say, can be used for many different things, and I am going to use the word plague a bit interchangeably at points. But in the medical sense, it literally means this specific bacteria called Yersinia pestis. In it, there are 3 strains that happen, or 3 types of the plague that happen in the Black Death. You said you said bubonic plague, which was one of them. So you were right in your thinking of that. Can you name the 2 others?
A feverous plague, a plague of fever, and is that right? And the last one would be a scarlet pox.
No,
Pox.
no, got that completely wrong.
fuck.
So there's the bubonic plague. I bet there's people in the car or wherever they are driving going, "It's the pneumonic, you idiot!" And septicemic.
Pneumonia.
Yeah, pneumonic plague and septicemic plague. Those are the 3.
Septicemic as in like sepsis.
Yeah, blood.
Like in infectionary.
Yeah. And I'll explain what they all do. We'll talk more about those specific things later. But the famous one that people do associate with the Black Death is the bubonic plague, because it's the one where you get the boils. So it's quite, it's very easy to envisage as a kid learning this in school, how disgusting it is.
As always, if you've enjoyed listening to the Pint-Sized History podcast, please be sure to like, subscribe, follow, review us. Just 5 stars on every platform. Talk about how good looking Joe is and how fascinating I am. And how... You seem surprised I said that.
What the fuck?
You're stunning.
Yeah,
You're stunning, Joe.
I just wasn't sure where you were taking that, and I'm still not sure, even now.
And if you've heard this and you've been inspired to write reviews, say Zack's voice is smooth like gravel. Is gravel smooth? I think it's quite rough.
No, gravel's the worst thing you should have said there. Gravel's Sean
Rough
Dyche's
like
voice.
gravel.
Like Sean Dyche.
Anyway,
Right.
let's crack on.
So the Black Death, arguably the most famous pandemic from the plague, at least, it happened between 1346 and 1353. It is estimated between 25 million to 50 million people died, and they think almost half of Europe's population could have been wiped out, possibly close to a third. So it is a really, really big deal, this plague. And it's one of the most deadly pandemics of all time, which is why we're going to start with a little quiz question, Zach. Can you name me the most deadly pandemics of all time?
Of course I can, Joe. For the number 1, I'm going for, maybe not number 1, but the Spanish flu.
It is on there, yeah.
COVID.
The thing is, sorry, let me just preface. I don't have these ordered in numbers because it's disputed how many actually died, so we don't know for sure.
Okay.
But the Spanish flu is definitely in there. What was the other one you said?
COVID.
COVID is also in there, yeah.
The Black Death.
The Black Death, yeah. Those are probably the 3 most famous, along with one other. I'd say is
Plague
really
of
famous.
1660. It was before the Great Fire of London, and there was another plague going through Europe at the time.
Yes, so that's a good point to make. England was actually hit by the Black Death plague a bunch of times, more so than other countries. And one of those times was 1660, when London especially was completely destroyed by the plague. And then in the same year, there was the Great Fire of London. So it was a pretty brutal year for Londoners. But that isn't on the list because, that was only in London and parts of England. So it really wasn't in the millions like some of these other ones. Got any more?
Smallpox. A smallpox-based plague?
No. I mean, there are
No
smallpox.
smallpox.
There are. Look, if we're just talking about all diseases, then there's things like smallpox and measles.
What about swine
that
flu,
have
bird
been killing
flu?
people. Yeah, swine flu and bird flu are on there.
Really?
One that you haven't. Well, they're not. I mean, they're not. They're much below the list. I mean, the ones, the Black Death, the Spanish flu, and COVID are in the tens of millions. While most of the others are in a million or so. One that you haven't said, and this is probably the most ridiculous of all the stats, and I'm not surprised you wouldn't say it because it's from a European perspective, a British perspective, we don't talk about it as much.
When Christopher Columbus and the Spanish went to America, they basically wiped out the entirety of South America.
That was the one I was expecting you to, well, not expecting, but that was the other big one that I was waiting for you to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's absolutely crazy, by the way. Let me just say the stat on this. So, yes, when the Native Americans were met by Spanish colonizers...
Native Americans is a native to America, not the North American Native Americans that you know Indians.
I mean, they are. It's the same thing. Native Americans back then and Native Americans today are native because they grew up on the continent.
Native Americans not the same as Incas and Mayans and Aztecs, are they?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I guess I'm not using Native American as in Native USA. Yeah. I guess they're slightly different. But I don't know. I think it's pretty. I think it's understandable what I'm saying. By saying Native Americans, I'm saying people from the continent of North and South America, natives that met these colonizers. Apparently, the population size in 1492 was around 54 million. After the Columbian Exchange, 90% of the population died. So 48 estimated million people.
90%?
Yeah, only 10% of Native Americans on the continent, 100 years after they'd first met the Spanish and other European settlers, only 10% were still alive, which is a story in and of itself. And obviously that's much more taught in America and South America. It's not so much taught here. So I think that'd be another interesting podcast subject to talk about. I actually have a question. This has got nothing to do with the Black Death, but I find this really interesting, and I learned this a few months ago. So I have a question for you, Zack. I'm interested to know if you think you can get this. Why is it that all the major diseases only travelled west? How come we never in Europe got the same thing in America pox from the Native Americans?
Because of migration behaviors, migration patterns.
But you don't need Native Americans to fly over, to take a boat to Europe for plagues to be caught and said that way. Regardless, infected people will sail back and they'll be able to infect. You don't need migration for that. Any other guesses?
Temperature,
climate in the Americas is similar to here.
Medicine, technological advances in medicine.
No, it's this is I learned about this a few months ago, and I was blown away, but I don't know why, because actually, when you think about it, it's actually quite simple, but I never really thought about it, and so it really interested me. Basically, unlike Europe, Eurasia, there were no plagues in the Americas. There was no plagues for them to give. While they had colds and their own, regional diseases, all the deadly plagues that we consider, so things like smallpox, tuberculosis, typhus, cholera, influenza, measles, mumps, the plague, the bubonic plague, stuff like that, all of them came from the old world. And why is that, Zack? Why is it that all the major diseases are from the old world rather than the new world?
Yeah, because it's colder. It's far colder.
It's not colder.
Yeah, it is.
There's disease coming from the Middle East. That's not the reason.
I don't know, dense population centres?
Yeah, so you're close. So that is part of it. So plagues need new hosts because they travel fast and they kill fast. That's what makes them, plagues as we could call them. So cities with huge emigration are key. There's more people arriving in a city than people dying within the city. The Americas, before the Europeans arrived, had the occasional city or big settlement, usually in Mexico or Peru or southern USA, but nowhere near to the same degree. So that's the next thing. But that still doesn't explain it on its own. The next part is animals. Eggs come from animals. So cows alone carry tuberculosis, measles, and smallpox. That's what cows carry on them all the time. That's fine because cows are cows, and the chance of you getting infected by being with cows are quite small. I mean, the chance of you contracting a plague specifically from being near animals is actually really, really, really low. But when the old world, Europe, have all these cities that have awful sanitation, and medieval cities in Europe were full of animals. There were animals in the street, there were animals shitting in the rivers, there was meat markets, there was slaughterhouses. There's animals fucking everywhere in like London and Paris and Madrid and all these cities. But then on top of that, that still doesn't mean that American cities with its own animals and stuff shouldn't still have plagues, right? So this comes to the final point, and this is the thing I find so interesting about the subject. The Americas never had any animals to domesticate. And I never knew this. Let's say it this way. What animals can be domesticated? Pigs, cows, sheep, horses, goats, chickens, water buffalo, camels, donkeys. None of them are in the Americas. The Americas don't have access to horses. No donkeys, no horses. The only domesticated animals in the Americas that they had were dogs, llama, alpaca, and turkeys. Yeah, that's it. So, but what's really
selection, I gotta say,
it is. Especially because horses are so key. Like, they didn't have horses. Like, horses were so important. And what's really interesting is the question of why didn't they have the ability to have plagues that would infest Europe is actually the same reason why Europe got there first. Because there were no animals to domesticate, or, it's very difficult to domesticate llamas. They're way more difficult than goats, for example. Way more. So what you realize is actually part of the reason why, with less food, with less livestock, with less ability cows to plow fields of wheat, society didn't build as much anyway. So that's part of the reason why Native Americans weren't able, they just lost the lottery in terms of what animals were there able to be taken. So basically, they had no chance to have a society big enough to have cities and have a society that would create these technological advancements. And I never really realised
how arable was the farmland in South America as well?
Really arable, especially in America. Really? America's got crazy good arable farmland. But like I say, the technology.
South America, because it's all quite mountainous and hilly, isn't it?
Yeah, less. It's mostly mountains and rain.
In that place, even like Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah, rainforests and mountains are all over South America, so I think less so. But in America, the Great American Plain is full of it. But then you know what the main animal is? The main animal that you could try to tame if you were in the North American Plain is fucking buffalo and bison. Yeah, and it's like, have you seen how big they are? You've got no fucking chance of taming those cunts without, horses, for fuck's sake, and, with a real structure. So they had no chance. So anyway, the point I'm making about plagues is, interestingly, the very same reason why the plagues came to Native America was because of this is the same reason why the Spanish invaded them and the Native Americans didn't invade the Spanish instead. So anyway, that's just a little factoid that's got nothing to do with Black Death, but I just thought it was quite interesting.
2 minutes in without talking about the Black Death.
Yeah, so now let's actually get into the Black Death and talk about this subject. So like I say, it's obviously this huge moment in European history. These old medieval cities, European cities, are hotbeds for plagues, obviously. Animals spread disease and animals are everywhere. London is one of the absolute worst contenders for this, by the way. London is one of the most filthy, overpopulated, revoltingly disease-ridden cities in medieval Europe. Still is. Well, I mean, mate, how crazy it is London was so bad it was considered filthy for the time. If you came from Paris or somewhere, you'd be like, man, this place is a fucking dump. What the fuck? So that's how bad it was. So no wonder we had multiple plagues, for fuck's sake. So Zack, how did the Black Death spread?
Well, I just want to say, everyone comes to the assumption, they all come and say it's a certain year, it's the rats, it's the animals. It was the Jews, Joe. Well, I hate to tell you, as a Jewish man, we're privy to this bit of information that the general public are not. And I'm going to tell you, we spread that sucker bad. We got you good.
Well, we are skipping ahead if we talk about the Jews, but the conspiracy theory at the time was that the Jews had, there was an underground cabal of Jews that were poisoning the wells.
Didn't know that. Didn't know that.
So I mean, the theory was genuinely something like that. It was there's this cohort of a systemic group of Jews that are trying to kill the system and stuff. Anyway, but no, it's not true, obviously. So the actual answer is
rats.
Yeah, it's fleas, but fleas on rats. Rats.
Yes.
So, but you're right, basically. We actually don't know where they came from 100%. But it is, I think there's a fairly common theory that it did come from the East. In fact, this is the main theory that people have at the moment, is that it arrived in Europe from a ship coming from the Genoese city of Caffa. Now, Genoa is a city, because Italy was made up of city-states at that time in history, mostly city-states. Caffa, do you know where Caffa is, Zack?
In Genoa, so I mean, it'd be on the northwest coast.
No, it's hundreds of miles away, mate. It's in Crimea. It's a fucking trading. It's a trading post in Ukraine. That's where Caffa
Genoese have a territory in Crimea.
Yeah.
That's
these
crazy.
Italian city-states, man, we're all over the place.
Yeah, like Venice, especially, right? Venice was a powerhouse at the time.
One of them, yeah, absolutely. So anyway, this trading post of Caffa in Crimea was sieged by the Golden Horde, which is a descendant, one of the first descendants of Genghis Khan's Mongolian Empire. So this is how the story goes. So the year is 1347, and rumours of this pest-ridden disease has been making its way through China and India. It eventually reached the Tatar army sieging Caffa. The Tatars are the Golden Horde. The Golden Horde, by the way, had been sieging this city for years, on and off at this point. And all of a sudden, the Khan, Janai Beg, saw some of his troops die of this horrific visceral illness. The bodies stank, and he reportedly ordered for them to be put into the catapults and flung into the city. And this happened for weeks. And apparently, the one thing I learned is that when bodies are, molding from this awful disease, they essentially become like pus-filled, gas giants. So when you fling it at a wall, it doesn't just like splatter on the wall and go down. It like explodes into little bits, like
Really?
fucking arms.
God.
Yeah, it's really fucking disgusting. Like arms and limbs will fly off in every direction and blood will fly everywhere. It's really fucking
Jesus.
disgusting. Anyway,
Yeah.
as you can imagine, if that's happening for weeks, then the 80,000 inhabitants of Kaffa are maybe a tiny bit susceptible to the disease itself. Now we're going to talk about rats and fleas, because it's kind of crazy how perfect this concoction is for breeding a deadly pandemic. So the black rat originates from Asia. It's smaller than some other rats, but it is incredibly fertile. One female black rat can produce 30 to over 60 offspring per year. Now,
Jesus.
these offspring reach maturity in a few weeks and then start breeding themselves. So, like, infestations can create millions out of, like, nothing very quickly. It's fucking insane. Black rats are also very agile. They can climb walls vertically. They can gnaw through old medieval stone, and they can slip through gaps as small as 0.6 centimeters. So, like fucking that big. And they can survive falls of several meters as well. So they're like really durable. They will survive anything, and they are fested with disease. Black rats are also the perfect hosts for fleas, including the oriental flea, which is also known as the rat flea. This flea can jump 0.5 meter in the air using its powerful hind legs and can bite through incredibly tough skin. It can survive without a host for over a month. In the meantime, it can just chill on like dead corpses, hair, clothes. You can just chill on that for a month until it finds a new host.
You're kind of scaring me. This is horrible.
It is pretty grim, isn't it?
It's really horrible.
I mean, and honestly, when you think about half the population have died from this, I mean, you imagine what a city would actually look like during this time period. I mean, Jesus Christ, think about what that would actually be like when all this is happening. I mean, like,
smell.
Yeah, the smell is a really smelly thing, this plague. The bubonic plague is really fucking smelly. There's dead bodies everywhere. There's rats everywhere. It's bizarre. Anyway, the city of Kaffa is obviously a desolate place during the siege because the bubonic plague starts reeking through the city, and there's feral animals eating bodies and rats everywhere. There's no food because they're under siege. So many Italians, it's a port city, so many Italians just sail far away, relieved to have gotten out of that hellhole. And what they don't realise is underneath the deck of the ships that they're on will be tons of black rats infested and ready to spread across Europe. So we've got these awfully sanitised major cities and a horde of infected rats acting as a perfect host for plague-fested fleas. On top of that, the 1300s had a huge influx of human births. Like, the population of Europe was skyrocketing at that point. Many cities were all of a sudden very overcrowded and full of sewage. People were like throwing. I mean, this is a time period where like the major cities would have like you'd shit in a pot and then you just throw it out into the street.
Chuck out the window.
You open your window and chuck it out into the street. So like there were open sewers just everywhere.
To do that.
I bet you have. That doesn't surprise me.
And
only decades.
Yeet out the window.
That's so fucked up, dude.
Yeet, Kobe.
Kobe. One thing that's really important is that plagues always go hand in hand with wars. That is a fact about plagues. The conditions that wars bring to both civilian populations, but also armies that are traveling together. It's like, the 1300s are just synonymously brutal. There's wars happening all the time, alongside the fact that there's a plague coming from the east. It's all these conditions are just like setting up perfectly for like the most grim siege you've ever seen in your life. Where do these ships from Kaffa land? Remember, they're coming from Crimea. Where's the first place you think they'll land?
I think the first place that ship might land or anchor at port would be Greece, like somewhere in the Mediterranean, either Greece or Italy.
Even closer. Before Greece, coming from Crimea,
Romania, Bulgaria,
the Phosphorus Strait. What's the city that's
Turkey.
That's right?
Constantinople.
Yeah. There you go, Constantinople. So listen to this: Constantinople lost over half of its population to the plague. It was one of the first European cities to really get it. From there, the ships then continue down to Greece and Bulgaria, like you say, down to the Middle East as well. After months of travelling, 12 Genoese ships arrived at the port of Messina in Sicily. The locals apparently saw these ships arrive and all the crew looked like deathly pale with big lesions on their skin, boils, it looked really, really unwell. I mean, I can't imagine how terrifying that would have been to just see these ships arrive and these like kind of zombies get off it. There were tons of dead bodies hidden underneath the deck who would have died from the plague during the months of travelling, the voyage. Eventually, the ships were turned away But by then, it was already too late. Sicily would lose 1/3 of the island's entire population.
Jesus Christ.
The ships then continued to Malta, Venice, Algiers, Genoa, Barcelona, Marseille, Valencia. I mean, all the port cities of the Mediterranean, basically. Yeah, from North Africa to France and stuff. So from there, it then spreads across the mainland of Europe so quickly. I mean, historians believe that the Black Death would spread across land 2.5 miles every single day and spread as fast as 30 miles per day on the sea. So, this was like coming at such a rate.
You said Algiers. So
Yes.
was Africa or North Africa partially affected by it too?
Yeah. So although we obviously associate the Black Death with Europe, it's not just Europe that was affected. Obviously, we think it's come from India and China. But it also from this siege of Kaffa and from the Silk. We also think it's probably the Silk Road as well, the main road that took goods from China to Europe. So it's likely that also was bringing it. It went everywhere. So I'll literally just tell you exactly where. So it went from the tip of Scotland, the Faroe Islands, parts of Norway and Sweden and Denmark, all the way down to all of Spain, Portugal, Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt. It stayed on the coast because below those coastal cities is just desert. So that's where they stay. Yeah, so that's where they stay. They don't. It just basically stays at Tunisia and Egypt and stuff, and it goes all across the Middle East. I think it goes as far as Iraq. Not sure Iran, but definitely Iraq.
I know you said earlier that temperatures play a part, but I would have thought like those countries were far less hospitable to bacteria and diseases because like heat. I'm not necessarily sure to what extent. It's always in winters when plagues and viruses and diseases happen because like it's cold and bacteria can like incubate a lot quicker and far more effectiveness, far more efficiency. They can. And so when the heat comes and people go outside,
you're half right.
And, like.
Okay, you're right. In fact, you're not really right. You're actually wrong, but it's not for the reason you'd expect. So you're wrong because fleas and rats thrive in hotter conditions, not colder. So you're actually wrong in that sense. It was more deadly. It was more of a problem in the hotter places. The difference, though, is that when it's the winter and there's less fleas and less rats, it's also colder, so humans tend to stay closer to each other.
Hunker down.
So hunker down, and that obviously because it's airborne or partly airborne, or you can get it from touching others or talking, spitting at them and stuff. It would naturally happen that way instead. So yes, in theory, it basically meant that it didn't really matter, winter or summer. It was still pretty bad, and it didn't really matter which part of Europe. I mean, if it was bad in Norway and it was bad in Morocco, then it's clear that it doesn't really discriminate. Technically, it should be better or worse in hot conditions, but it didn't. In the end, it kind of didn't really matter. Zach, do you know where the word quarantine comes from?
Quarantine comes from the word quarantena, which is a term that 15th century Venetians would give to ships that they were told to anchor at a harbour for 40 days so as to not pass on any diseases. Yeah. And no, I did not just read that 2 seconds ago when I misinterpreted the definition of a plague ship.
Yeah, that is exactly. But interestingly, do you know where that phrase still comes from? Because you actually haven't seen the real thing. This is just a chance for me to flex my Italian, basically. So I'm hoping you don't know. Yeah, but it means something. Do you know what it means?
Stay away, get away, leave.
So 40 in Italian is 40 and giorni is days. So the phrase 40 giorni in Italian was the phrase that they used when a ship would arrive and they go, no, you got to stay where you are. 40 meaning obviously 40. Then this kind of idea of quarantining ships in the bay, it started becoming more of a thing across the rest of Europe. They kept the word. So quarantine literally comes from the word 40 in Italian because at the time 40, I think it was originally 30, which is 30, but then it changed to 40 for some reason. Language is so fascinating, isn't it, Zach?
It's weird, isn't it? Because how was that then? I guess how's that like gone down the lines for quarantine?
How's that cricket?
Like,
that's not quite cricket, is it? How's that work?
That's not quite cricket, no. That's good Englishman. We've shaped the word into a far better place than it initially was.
Sorry, may I just say as well, we definitely didn't. We definitely didn't. Sorry, have you heard? Yeah, the quarantine is so French. That is such a French-sounding word. It's because the French took 40 and changed it to quarantine, and then we heard the French say it and just didn't quarantine. That's very French. So it wasn't us at all.
Great linguists, the French. Terrible people.
So bubonic, pneumonic, and septicemic. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Do you want to explain how they're different, Zach? I'm really testing you here. This is a lot you'd have to know.
Bubonic is pus-filled boils. They can be like black in nature and depicted as black. And they're basically one of the main symptoms of the Black Death, which is like, I imagine witch doctors would poke and make the oozes and juices come out of the pus-filled sacks.
Yeah, you're pretty much right. For bubonic, it was flu type. So these are the symptoms of the bubonic plague: flu-like symptoms, high fevers, fatigue, and a bloody cough. Plague boils would appear near the groin, the armpit, or the neck. These boils could disfigure you permanently if you survived the plague afterwards. During the Black Death, it gave a 60% mortality rate, which was the best of the three. The other two are worse.
Wow.
Yeah. So now let's hear what's the next one? Pneumonic. Explain that one.
So the pneumonic plague would be, I guess, stemming from pneumonia, which means something to do with the chest and your lungs. So I imagine it would be like, the plague riddles your lungs with horrible bacteria.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. It's the symptoms of vomiting and coughing blood. It's an airborne disease. Unlike the bubonic plague, this one you can get by just talking to someone else and it just the droplets going through the air. You would die 3 days after contracting pneumonic plague. And in the Black Death, you died 95% of the time, possibly more, but usually around 95%. And finally, septicemic.
Septicemic. I imagine, based on the fact that you said something to do with blood earlier, that this is the blood thing. And I imagine the pain is excruciating as your blood and your body succumb to feverish chills throughout the entire body, followed by seizures and cramps and puking, non-stop retching, internal bleeding, maybe diarrhea, perchance.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't actually know if there's diarrhea, but I honestly think you're probably right because essentially,
diarrhea.
Yeah, well, septicemia is when it enters the bloodstream, so your body would just freak out and shut down. So pretty much all the things you said. I mean, yeah, seizures. Your body can't cope. It just has no clue how to deal with this. Your blood would turn black. That's one of the symptoms. You'd see your feet might start turning black. You could see it. You die 100% of the time with septicemic plague, and you would die 14 hours after being infected. So I'll say them quickly again. With the bubonic, it's usually about a week.
I think my interpretation is like the bubonic is the one you do not want to get. But I didn't realize.
Honestly, if you're gonna die, I don't know which you'd rather have because they're all pretty grim. Septicemic sounds disgusting, but then you do die in 14 hours, while bubonic it will go on for days. So I honestly don't. But those 14 hours would probably be the worst hours ever. So I don't know what would be the best solution. Bubonic is obviously the famous one because it's the one you can see. The other two you can't really see as well.
I imagine the treatments are probably slightly more obvious as well when it comes to bubonic plague because it is like I guess. Doctors at the time are probably better at treating superficial stuff than they are treating things that are inside the body, obviously.
I'll tell you now, the medicine ideas that they had at the time are fucking atrocious. It's so bad, man. I mean, like, they got one thing right, which was from the Italians, which was to quarantine. That was clever, and it's still a practice that we use every day. But in terms of the things they actually try to do to you to help alleviate the symptoms or to cure you, all of it usually just makes things worse. They really couldn't get like a single fucking thing right. It's fucking nuts. I will explain them a little bit later when we get to it.
The beauty of hindsight that if you dropped like one of us in the 1300s, like we would just greatly improve the general health of that city or that country.
Well, we wouldn't know. We're not experts, so we would in the sense that we'd be able to say, don't do that over and over. Don't do that. But we don't know. I don't know how to treat bubonic plague. I don't know what actual medicines you need. It is still a thing, by the way. I haven't actually said, although the bubonic plague is known for the Black Death, it's still around. I think there's cases that happen in India and sometimes in America. Yeah, we will talk about what the treatments that they do, but we'll get to that in a little bit. First, we're going to talk about how it spread. So, like I say, it spread all over, but it started in the Mediterranean. By the summer of 1348, so this is 1 year after the siege, the plague has reached its way to Paris, and it's crossing the English Channel. At this point in history, England's doing great. We're having a great time. We've just smashed the French at the Battle of Crécy 2 years ago, which is one of our big
frogs.
Medieval military victories. It's like it was another Agincourt. It was like
it's a long moment, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. So, and we also had a good king. We had Edward III, who was popular and was doing a good job. So, things were on the up for England, and we'd avoided the plague as well. I mean, it'd been a year. Many places were infected, but we'd avoided it. But we love to trade, so it was only a matter of time before something happened where we were going to get infected. We were one of the worst affected countries, along with Italy and France and a few other states. Across the entire island, we had a mortality rate of 55%. So over half of the population of our country died during the Black Death. In some British cities and villages, it reached 80 to 90% mortality rate. I think in Norwich it was 70%. I saw in London was like 55 or 60, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
so
fucking each other over there.
So yeah, Norwich, I mean, who's surprised by that? So anyway,
who's surprised that a disease spreads fast there? Literally
Norwich.
Can't keep their hands out each other's pants, the Norwichians.
Severe lack of white blood cells in Norwich. So incestuous. Anyway, can I say that? If we've got anyone from Norwich, I'm really sorry. I don't think it's racist or like rude.
I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. You know what you're up to in Norwich, and you should be ashamed of yourselves.
Webbed feet.
Fucking hands. For all the viewers who don't know what Norwich is, or know much about the UK,
it's like,
take it from us as fact that people there have webbed hands.
Imagine like Atlantis, but much more ancestral. It's just like everyone's fucking their sister.
Like mermaids.
Yeah, like is that. Yeah, they're like mermaid people, but like not as cool.
Got fucking gills.
it's just got gills.
See, one thing they do have a funny accent though.
It's kind of hard to do East Anglia compared to like, West Anglia. I find it difficult to.
Hey, we're in Norwich, we are.
But if you do Somerset.
Well, Somerset's just a bit different. It's a bit more of an open.
Oh, that is a bit
different, I think.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, no, fair enough.
They're very similar.
Fair enough. They are. I find it difficult to tell between them. But then you look at their hands and you go, "Oh yeah,
yeah, that makes sense."
Right, Norwich.
Oh, Ipswich, classic Norwich.
Ipswich. I mean, honestly, look,
mustard covering their mouths.
Stop. Pause the podcast. Pause the podcast, type in Ed Sheeran and look at his hands. Look at his hands and come back and you'll see. Just how you're actually doing it now. It's actually not not true.
Just in case just in case you actually having me on there. Just in case you counter-bantering me.
That's not actually true. Ed Sheeran does not have webbed hands. Unless
anyone from Norwich, great area, love your mustard, and I think that's pretty much anything you export. So good job on that front, guys.
Well, Ipswich did bring us Ed Sheeran, and he's a good singer-songwriter, so...
Can't stand Ed Sheeran. You
can't stand Ed Sheeran?
Take Ipswich off the map if they're already exporting Ed Sheeran.
Take Essex with it.
They should completely cut off East Anglia from the mainland.
No, I don't mind East Anglia.
I don't really know where East Anglians fit into the UK. Like, does it? Like,
they are probably the most irrelevant part of the UK, aren't they?
Yeah, like at least like with the
is that rude? I feel like I'm being too rude.
No. It's like, at least with the Southwest, like, oh, they're Cornwall. They want to fight for their independence. And then you get like the southeast, like Devon,
and it's beautiful,
Kent, a little bit irrelevant, but Canterbury.
Yeah.
And then you got the West Midlands, East Midlands, unique character. Dirty people, but unique character.
Whoa. Hold on. His family's from Liverpool. His dad's from Liverpool. It's okay. He can say it. He can say
that's the Northwest. The Northwest.
You said Midlands.
Probably. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. The Midlands aren't dirty. I mean, Birmingham's dirty, but the Midlands in general isn't dirty. It's quite beautiful, the Midlands.
We slang on Birmingham too much.
It's just Birmingham.
And then he gets to the Northwest, and Northwest is just full of character, like humble people.
That's true.
Northwest, Northeast, lovely people. Newcastle, Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, lovely cities, great crack.
Well, Manchester City and Manchester United are a bit shit, though, so it's not all
Manchester get fucked. But the rest of it, lovely. Yeah. It's just that section of the fucking
East Anglia.
The East Anglia. They've got mustard. That's it. The biggest export of all. The biggest export of all time is a fucking modern day singer who everyone hates.
No one. What do you mean everyone hates? No one hates Ed Sheeran.
Everyone hates Ed Sheeran. Everyone hates him. He's got to be one of the least popular superstars in the world right now.
Right. Okay. So where were we? Sorry, we were completely ranted very far there.
Just if there wasn't obvious East Anglians, we're just pulling your chain. We're yanking your pizzle.
I wonder if anyone listens to the pod that's from East Anglia. If you
I don't think people from the Midlands are dirty either. Come on, that was just a bit.
Yeah, if you're in any of those regions that we've just insulted, put a message and just let us know if you're insulted or if you'd like us to continue. Because I think there needs to be a line somewhere, but I don't know where it is. So I guess we'll just keep it all in.
Yeah. I think we keep things relatively tame, and then like just at least on my part, it gets a bit out of hand every so often.
You can slag off England though. I think that's the one area we're allowed to slag off, and at the very least we can slag off London.
And they'd call me a posh snobby cunt from London, even though I'm I consider myself working class.
Tory wanker. That's all the stuff you got during the traitors, didn't they? They were like, I bet he's such Tory. Yeah. He's so clearly a Tory wanker. Meanwhile, and then you had to fucking tweet your Labour Party certificate so that the abuse would stop. That's crazy. Yeah,
that was probably
you're not tweeting that now, are you? Fuck you know. Yeah. Labour prick.
That's probably the worst moment of my trades experience, because overall it wasn't a fantastic experience being like out there in the limelight and having national attention for a few weeks. But like the worst bit about Shadow of a Doubt was people thinking I was a fucking Tory. Like that, me, I've been a Labour member for I'm 30 years old. I've been a Labour for about 14, 15 years. I've worked for 5 Labour MPs. I've been a member of like my local parties for the last 10 years. I've been to conference twice. I campaigned and door knocked in general elections, and people were calling me a fucking Tory. The worst of the worst. I'm looking at you, Tory.
But if you look at, I suppose if you look at demographics, you kind of were this kind of half and half, because you're like this, posh sounding Londoner that works in law, works in the House of Commons. So I think people could assume from that you are. But at the same time, you're also a young Londoner. I was going to say Jewish, but actually Jews tend to vote more conservative than liberal, so maybe that is also the other way. But you're kind of in between. You could be like, I can see why people thought it. Is all I'm saying.
Man, I'm from a single parent home.
Yeah, but they don't know that, do they? Hi, I'm Zack. I'm on the Traitors. I'm 28, and I'm from a single parent home. That's not how it works.
I am obviously privileged in the sense that I come from Northwest London, which is one of the most it's probably the nicest
affluent areas of Europe.
Yeah, affluent as fuck.
Yeah, so anyway, should we get back to the Black Death? Because that was like a 10-minute ramble we just did. Like I said, London had some of the worst sanitary conditions of any medieval city, and lost half its population. Meanwhile, the Scots were loving this. They were seeing England get ravaged by this plague, and they're protected by their wall. And they had amassed, England's in no condition to do anything. They amass an army on the border to invade England. But the plague attacks the army, and suddenly all the troops are dying, and brought the illness back up through Scotland when they went back to their homes.
Scots.
So suddenly the Scots are right in the thick of it as well.
That was their moment. As you can imagine, that was their moment, the Scots.
That was their moment. That was literally their moment. Chance to right all the wrongs.
Newcastle could be part of Scotland now. Away.
Yeah. They didn't even make it to fucking Newcastle. As you can imagine, the death rate is super high across Europe. And when it's this high, it obviously brings about huge societal change. It really can't be overstated just how cataclysmic this would change society and social hierarchy. I mean, like, the plague didn't discriminate, right? It killed many famous royalty. It killed the daughter of the King of England. She was traveling through France to marry the King of Castile's son. So she was traveling down to Spain through France, and she died from the plague. It killed 2 successive archbishops of Canterbury. It killed queens of Sweden and Aragon, and it killed almost every single bishop in Norway. That's a weird stat I read, that almost every single bishop in Norway was killed from it because they were all together or something, who knows.
Maybe it's because they're touching people and, blessing them.
Maybe. Yeah. Oh, I thought you meant different type of touching. Fair enough.
They're diddling the kids, but they're also touching the peasants, touching their flock and grabbing their cocks as well.
The only reigning king to die of the Black Death was the King of Castile, King Alfonso, who was sieging the Muslim Caliphate in Gibraltar, the city of Gibraltar, when his army and himself got plagued. And plagued as fuck, and he fucking dies there.
His army got plagued as fuck.
Sometimes got plagued
sometimes you have a fucking way with words.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Alfonso, King Alf, got plagued out.
King Alf got plagued as fuck.
Yeah, that's how it works, bro. So literally killed a king. A king of a country died of the Black Death.
But would that have been their last stand?
Yes, that's a good question. Yeah, so that was, at that point, their last stand. And so this was Alfonso's chance to get rid of the caliphate forever. He couldn't, and it was able to spread again, and it took another 100 years for the Spanish to eventually get the Muslims out of southern Spain. All this death meant that labour forces suddenly had so much more bargaining power. Less food was needed, and more workers were needed. So suddenly barons and lords had to pay higher wages to their peasants. For the first time, peasant survivors of the plague were earning enough money that they could actually save and start passing down to their children, essentially the very beginnings of a middle class. It's even argued that the Black Death caused the beginning of the end of serfdom, so the end of the peasant.
Oh, really?
Obviously, there's so much more to it than just that, but you could argue that this is the first time that the peasant really gets the rights that it then carries forward from then on. It's not just that their working conditions have gotten better; their quality of life has gotten better because there's less people, the cities are less crowded, there's more care about public health because everyone realizes how dirty everything is. And your diet's better because you have more money to pay for better food, and there's more food about because there's less people. So you're all these things basically, not at the time, but as time goes on from this year onwards, things actually start improving a lot for the average peasant in Europe.
For those of you who don't know what serfdom is, by the way, because Joe kind of just like breezed past that, serfdom is literally slavery. Like serfdom is a lot of the peasants, they were like contracted. Well, not contracted. They were just like literally enslaved on lots and estates to just like work the rest of their whole lives on like plantations.
And while they would technically say they were free, really there was no mobility. So you were realistically stuck in that position, even if you
tied to their lord.
knew it. Yeah, if you knew it or not. Serfdom in general kind of left. It was still a thing in Russia in like the 1920s when Stalin was around. So it's not like it was still around for quite a while, but it certainly slowed down. And there are obviously equivalents. I mean, there's still modern day slavery.
Yeah,
with kind of similar things. But yeah, the idea of serfdom, like Zack says, it starts going away at this point. So let's talk about the medical theories, mate, because like I said earlier, they are absolutely awful, useless, and often made things worse. So some of the things that doctors thought at the time that would improve the situation, they suggested bloodletting, which was essentially to like cut open the skin to let the blood breathe. Of course, what you're doing by that is creating an open wound that is easier to get some disease go into. So that doesn't work. That makes things worse. Cutting open the boils to let the pus out. And I don't think that would make things worse because you're already infected by that point. But it certainly doesn't make things better. Now you're just bleeding. And you're going to die likely anyway. So I don't think that changes anything. Drinking urine. That was another one. Now, as you can imagine, the average person's urine back then probably wasn't that healthy. So I don't think that worked.
So yellow.
Yeah.
So
and not only... And you think that's bad? They even tried rubbing poo on the wound. So yeah, that's another great idea. Rubbing fecal matter into an open wound. That will solve it.
If we're there, like no, don't put poo there.
Huh?
No,
this, and he's like just holding poo in his hands, like the monkey doctor. No,
chucking it. He's chucking it at people. No. Stop it.
What year is this? No, guys. What the fuck? It's like the best. Apparently Paris was the medical center of medieval Europe. It was where like all the best doctors went to. And so you just go there and these French doctors be like, huh? Pee, little pee. He's like undoing his pants.
Pee pee poo poo.
Come on, pee pee poo poo. Oh, that's so much. No, monsieur.
Stop it.
That won't work.
Stop it. Put it away. Put it away. Put your burlap breeches back up, please.
That's fucked up. So anyway, but obviously quarantining was a good idea. And interestingly, there were cases of towns and cities where forcing people to be locked up actually worked. So, for example, in Milan, if there was a suspicion you were infested, the locals would brick up the entrance to your home and lock you and your family inside, which is basically killing them because maybe they were able to give them food through like a gap or something. But realistically, you're literally forcing people to stay in these cramped conditions with no, they'll be with their family. There's not going to be any space. So you're basically killing them. But Milan only had a mortality rate of 15% during the Black Death.
Really? Wow.
So 15% compared to some of these other 50% places. I mean, it kind of did work. Quarantining is a solution. People were learning it.
Great chicken, the Milanese.
Go on. It is. It's brilliant. Let's
go on. Like there's some poignant thought.
Yeah,
go on. Oh, that's
really
interesting
gonna be good.
stuff.
I can tell this is going to be good. I can really tell you're going to cook with this one. Milanese is good. I like chicken. It's like, great. That's my podcast partner. That's my podcast partner. I'm busy talking about the ins and outs of one of the deadliest pandemics.
He's talking about chicken Milanese,
and he's like, no, go on, Zack. Let's hear what you got to say. He's just like, I like chicken tay. Milan have good chicken.
Chicken burger.
Chicken burger. Thanks, Zack. Back we go now.
But I mean, this is actually an unhinged episode. It's going to be one of our most stupid episodes for sure.
It's fun. I like chatting about Black Death. It's just such a weird topic. We got to talk about the plague doctors because they're obviously super famous. I'll obviously put an image on the screen so you can see it. I imagine most people listening will know instantly about the outfit that I'm referring to. But if you don't know, plague doctors would wear this like black robe that would go down to the bottom, covering their whole body. Hood would go over the top of your head. They'd wear a hat, and in their face they'd wear this like crow beak-like bird's mask with a really long beak.
Like steezy.
Yeah,
very, very
pretty cool.
Coded.
They had gloves on their hands. They had glasses over the mask itself, and those glasses they dyed red, which seems a bit scary. And the beak itself would be filled with herbs, which they thought would be good for breathing, which didn't.
Potpourri.
That does fuck all. But they thought it was a thing at the time. This is essentially a medieval hazmat suit. And what they would do is they would walk around, they would observe, they would analyze the symptoms, and they would help ease suffering. Realistically, there's not that much else they can do because no one has any real solutions for it. But they were risking their own life to do so. So it is pretty commendable. Often they would be the last human that an infected victim would see, because if you're quarantined, then the plague doctor's the only one that's going to come and visit you, and he's going to see you and he's going to go, you're fucked, mate, and then he's gonna piss off. So that was your last, breath of humanity before you died of septicemia. Who are we to blame? Who are we to blame for this disease?
The Jews. Again, I'm Jewish. Damn Mongolians. Yeah, I guess
it's just there's nothing you can do. It's not like a disease that anyone. There is no one to blame. The fact is that when there's awful trauma and loss and disaster, everywhere always looks for a scapegoat. That's just a natural instinct of humanity. It's some place to put your anger, put your trauma, your sadness, to throw it in a direction. So Europe starts looking for a scapegoat for these problems, and this is one of the most famous of all the racist conspiracy theories that the Jews have faced in its long history, the Black Death. Because, basically, like I said a bit earlier, the people started to believe that an underground...
Fire, Joe, no smoke without fire. Gotta say it,
he's Jewish. He's
Stinky,
Jewish. It's okay.
rotten Jews.
He's Jewish. It's like, I can't say it.
I wonder to what extent, even the people that know I'm Jewish still think that what I'm saying is unacceptable.
Well, you have been called a race traitor before, so maybe... Maybe after this episode, we get a few more.
Dad, who stopped listening to the podcast because I said there was a genocide in Gaza.
Oh, for fuck's sake. People started to believe an underground Jewish network had created this elaborate scheme of poisoning all the wells. Jews were often tortured until they confessed. And by confessed, that means, they've been tortured, so they'll just say anything. Yeah. There are stories of Jews in France and Germany where they were grouped together and burned alive, often naked, which is pretty fucking horrific. Certain communities and figures, which included the Pope and King of Poland, condemned the brutality and refused to accept the Jews were involved. They pointed out that Jews were just as likely to get infected as anyone else, so why would they do this? Which is a pretty fucking valid thing to say, but that doesn't stop people from being anti-Semitic.
You'd have thought over thousands of years now of scapegoating cultures that maybe we'd learn as a people that there are bigger things at play that, or maybe even more niche things at play that aren't related to a set of people who are equally affected by it. Like the cost of living crisis is this current cost of living crisis is inspired by immigration, which is not true when you look at the statistics. We're hardwired as humanity to never look introspectively and look at ourselves or our country or the things that are happening. I think we're just always taught to just look outwards, as it's far less introspective and far less difficult. It's way easier to just look at someone else and go, it's your fault, than it is to turn around and go oh, maybe we have been super unproductive, there's been low economic growth for 10 years.
Yeah. Conflicts and scapegoating, I agree. I don't think they're going to go anytime soon. While we are now talking about this, it's got me thinking, and I'm going to say this theory that I have, and I have no basis to back it up, so don't take this as a historian, just take this as us chatting about it. But I do wonder if religion is really the main reason, in the sense that Christianity and Islam both consider Judaism, as Judaism does to the others, and they all consider each other as, a pagan religion, not a religion that's right. It's evil. But not even necessarily evil, but tainted. It's not the one true God. And on top of that, Jews and Judaism is a race and a religion that is far less populated than the others. So it's very easy to pick on. It's very easy for Christians to scapegoat the Jews because Well, let's put it this way. If Christians scapegoat the Muslims and say it's the Muslims that are poisoning the world, then there's another fucking holy war happening. The caliphates will start invading Spain again, or they'll start going up into Italy. And it's like, the Islam is much more of an existential threat. So if you're going to scapegoat someone, you're probably not going to, blame this major power that's just across the Mediterranean. Jews, meanwhile, make up these small communities in lots of cities and don't really have a way to defend themselves in the same way. And I wonder if that's part of the reason that it has been an easy place to put blame. But again, I don't know if there's any actual fact to that. But I would guess that's maybe part of it.
Being the world's, like, I don't know if we are the world's least populous religion, but it does give some credence.
Major one. You are of the major religions, yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else like I don't know.
Well, the other major religions like Hindu and Sikhism and Buddhism, and they've all got way more
hundreds of millions of people. Yeah. We're probably. Yeah, you might be right. It might just be easier to pick a fight with the weak guy than it is.
Yeah.
But now you got ultra aggressive Israel. So
not
pick
doing much for the
fight
image.
your own
But then,
peril.
you could argue, and I think Israel probably does argue, that the fact is that after being brutalized for so many thousands of years, what does the rest of the world expect from a Jewish state when it's constantly been harassed for millennia? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, of course you're going to create a state that ends up being even as aggressive, if not more, to defend itself. I'm not saying that makes it them right. I
don't know how we've got to the actions of the state of Israel talking about the Black Death. But I guess there's a clear path to it.
Well, after the Holocaust, this is probably the most famous of the pogroms that happened against Jews. This is certainly one of the biggest famous moments of Jews being blamed. So yeah, it's worthy of discussion. And I don't really think we're talking about politics here either. We're just kind of talking about how society works and human behavior. And it's really interesting.
When people are beat up and murdered and exterminated for millennia, literally thousands of years, like, I guess you get to a stage where, like, the only answer they have to that now is just violence.
And again, like I said a second ago, that doesn't make it right. We're not saying Israel is justified in what it does. We're just pointing out that, that is a lot of conflicts do happen because a nation has been bullied so badly that they go never again and they become more. I mean, literally look at the Treaty of Versailles in Nazi Germany. It's like it's not like this is the only time something like this has happened, where a nation that has often not had its peace at the table, its ability to be able to survive, has then gone the extreme the other way to make sure something like that never happens again.
Good point, Joe.
So
that's a good point.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about.
You're becoming something of a social commentator these days.
An intellectual.
You go, maybe
Meanwhile, you're out here going beep beep boo boo chicken, I like chicken.
Very poignant points.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to discuss.
Yeah, maybe
it's
the podcast
worth
doing wonders for you, but it's just melting my brain every week.
No, not at all.
I'm regressing. I'm nothing but a Neanderthal these days.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I love chatting about that stuff. I think that's some of our better content when we do discuss stuff that's more.
But keep politics.
I was going to say ethereal,
history, please. Stop talking
keep
about
politics,
that shit.
But you can talk about psychology and stuff, and there's tons of it in world history. Like I say, the Pope and the King of Poland would help or try to help the Jewish community. Certain cities would become safe havens for Jews. A lot in Poland itself, where it was illegal to do a pogrom.
Is that why there's so many Jews that live in Poland? Yeah, wow.
I imagine so. Yeah.
Wow, you could
and Marseille,
the Holocaust to the Black Death.
You could, yeah. And I wonder if is there a big Jewish population in Marseille? Do you know? Because Marseille was like a safe haven in France.
There's a lot of French Jews, so
Marseille was where they'd go to. They'd hear the stories that in Marseille they wouldn't be bullied as much and vandalized, so they went there. So let's wrap this up now. So the Black Death had lasted between 1346 and 1353, although not always in the same place. By the end, it was mainly Eastern Europe and Scandinavia that was suffering the most, while elsewhere the kingdoms were starting to recover. Working conditions has started to create this middle class. Medieval societies were starting to question heavily the methods that had been considered fact for generations in terms of health and how they deal with these types of things. And new forms of art and music were arriving due to the complete change of mood across the continent. So things like the macabre genre. It's really fascinating. Apparently songs and pieces of art were always so much lighter in the years just before the Black Death, and then after that it all turned much more sour. Loads of like I said, the macabre genre started then. Paintings would be much darker, songs would be a lot less jolly. It's really interesting how that works. New technologies emerged to help deal with a sudden lack of workforce, which improved living standards even further. This purge of society, while absolutely awful, ended up bringing Europe into a better place, a new place, a much easier place to live in. So the point I'm making, Zach, with all these things that have now happened in this, 7-year history of the Black Death, all these things have now changed society. And the point I'm making is the Black Death is so influential to world history that many historians even consider the Black Death to be
the most influential thing that's ever happened in history.
No. In history? Jesus. That's like, that'd be like making fire for the first time.
You're giving me absolutely fucking nothing. Yeah, the wheel.
The wheel, yeah.
You give me nothing to go on there.
I would be impressed if you got
say again. Go on, say again.
The point I'm making, Zach, I'm not sure if you will get this, but it'll be...
Put it at me again. Put it at me again, go on.
The point I'm making is that the Black Death was so influential in world history that many historians even consider the Black Death to be...
I got nothing. Bigger than the...
It's not a bigger thing. It's not a big thing. It's about ages.
Oh, right, the end of the Dark Ages.
We're in the Middle Ages now, but yeah, you're kind of on it. So it's a turning point. This time period is now considered the beginning of the late Middle Ages, which means it's the first steps towards the Renaissance, and beyond early modern times. People consider that the late Middle Ages, which is encapsulated by the Renaissance, because that happens during the late Middle Ages. They believe it begins when this plague happens because it completely changes society, and this society is in a completely different way after it's finished. So there you go. So that's my podcast on the Black Death.
Wow.
Cheers.
You could say that is.
Finish my
interesting. I finished right about 5 minutes. I'm drunk way too much. And although I said at the beginning of the episode that we drink throughout these episodes, sometimes get drunk, I've been pretty smashed like 2 nights out of 4 in the last 4 days. So a bit of life tonight. But yeah, that truly is a historic event that has shaped the modern world we live in today, eh?
It actually is, though. It actually is one of the historic events that shaped the modern world. You did, yeah, and that is actually a good example of it. So there we go.
Thank you very much for that, Joe. I really actually didn't know anything about I knew a little bit about that, but I didn't know much at all. It's one of the subjects I've come in like the most blind.
Oh, really?
So that really has reinforced.
Did you not learn it at school?
I did, but like it's all a confusing mess of like hormones and puberty. When I look back to like year 8 or year 9 when we learned it, it's nice to get that kind of that feel flavor through it. It's quite small in terms of like content, but like so seismic. Like in terms of like it came from there. It killed a bunch of people here, and it led to this, and that is like
I wasn't really sure what the narrative was going to be when I wrote this, because I was like, is this going to be like 20 minutes long, this podcast, or is there so much to talk about that's going to take hours and hours? I really didn't know when I started
it's fascinating,
researching it. Well, it's just crazy how much things change. And one thing I really didn't explain, and it's very gruesome, so I didn't really want to go into it. I could have painted a picture, for example, of what a medieval city would have looked like in this time, with all the terrifying details of it, but I didn't really want to. I mean, you can kind of imagine it in your head, and if you haven't imagined it in your head so far, then really take a moment when you
Bring out your dead.
Think about... Yeah, think about it as well. When there's plagues like this, there is non-stop robberies, raping. There's no food because no one's farming anymore. It's a really, really bad time to be alive in many, many ways. So it's a very, I didn't really want to get too stuck into that, but there are other things that we could have talked about if we talked about this further. But yeah, this is what I had for you, and yeah, we'll leave it there.
Thank you very much for joining us for the Pint-Sized History podcast. It's been a pleasure having you, and I hope you've learned just as much as I have about the Black Death. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.